Hello and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk today, day 2 of Conf. I'm Mick Baccio. Joining me today, as ever, is Audra Streetman and the Wish.com version of Ryan Kovar.
Yeah.
So Ryan couldn't be here. He's actually getting ready for his talk in about an hour or so. So we were lucky enough to bring in Splunk's resident Ohio enthusiast and chili aficionado, Tony Iacobelli, who happens to manage the Splunk cert. So Tony, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. So, as Mick said, my name is Tony Iacobelli, and I manage our cybersecurity incident response team. So, we're responsible really for handling any kind of confirmed incident across Splunk Cloud, Splunk corporate infrastructure, and we also help out and just make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep all of our different cloud platforms and products secure. So, it's a really fun job. We have a team of really great experts that work all across the company, and we even sometimes help out with some of the search content.
I know your team and Serge, who work together a lot of the programs with JCDC, and as well as some of the internal research we've done, you've been a tremendous help with. So I know you've had a super busy couple years now. It's been a thing.
Right?
Week,
we had
yeah.
Splunk Insider MiniCon, which we mentioned just yesterday on our other Coffee Talk show.
Thank you for speaking.
Yes,
Yes,
Tony was one of the
thanks.
speakers, and he gave us a rundown of what it means to be part of the cert for Splunk and kind of what your job looks like, a day in the life.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best parts about doing this job here at Splunk is obviously getting to use all of the tools and products and actually work through with our product teams on making the products better as well. It's really fun to see that, some of the issues we have are the same issues our customers have.
Right.
But we're able to help be their advocate as well and work with the product teams to help move the art of what we do forward. And so that's something really unique to the job here that's really fun, and I know my team really enjoys too.
So you spoke at SIM on Monday.
Yeah.
That was, I guess, yesterday or 2 days ago.
2 days ago, it's hard
Uh,
to keep track.
It is, it's so bad. And since we last talked about, 17 hours ago, what happened? We had a super session this morning.
Yes, a
and
lot already today has
Yeah, it's
happened.
been super
the
busy.
security super session kicked off with Jane Wong and Lana Knopp, which are, they work with product here at Splunk. And Jane works, she's the vice president of product management for security. So they kicked things off this morning. We also heard from Andrew Davies with Gartner, and he talked a lot about visibility, especially with an expanding attack surface and what that looks like from his perspective. Also, Patrick, we had Patrick Coughlin come in. He's with security at Splunk as well. He interviewed Jeffrey Hughes, who leads the detection and response engineering team at Liberty Mutual. So it was great to hear from him. And it was also really exciting because we got a shout out for Haley Mills.
So yeah, Haley, Liberty Mutual, the things we're doing over there, RBA plays a big part of it, and Haley, obviously, queen of RBA. And it was great to see Patrick on the big stage. I'm going to talk to him about his Jordans. They should be unlaced, and we'll go over that. But it was great to see Haley get some recognition.
Yep, and by RBA, that's risk-based alerting, and they kind of did a quick overview of that with how it can help reduce false positives, alert fatigue, and how it can benefit organizations with enterprise security.
Yeah.
And then after the most benevolent of bosses, the most kind. king
Yes,
of
Ryan
kings.
Kovar
Yeah.
made an appearance right after that and did a great job promoting the Splunk threat research team and also Surge, which he created just a year ago, right? So,
Yeah, we went over a little bit, and it was funny to see one of the lines from his talk was, who's had their past couple Christmases ruined?
Yeah.
Right.
Just because the way security's gone, just the way that incidents are timed, and I think we all kind of fall into that category. So it was good to see, a lot of folks there and recognize the work that Serge has put into, and the threat research team has been incredible. And then after, I believe, was Ira Winkler.
yes, Ira Winkler he is the chief security architect and deputy CISO at Walmart. So it was interesting to hear from him he talked a bit about burnout and addressing that, and then also his experience at Walmart and some other stories that were interesting. So
But I think behind the scenes, you look at the back end of an organization as large as Walmart, and just the security that goes into something like that is
Oh, yeah.
incredible. And to hear him talk about it, it was really, really fantastic. And it's not even 11 o'clock in the morning yet, and here we are.
right,
So
it's a busy day already. So
if you'll notice, Ryan Kovar is not here. He is prepping for his talk. Drew Church is also absent. He is actually
Yes.
speaking at 11
Yeah,
o'clock,
11
right?
o'clock, Drew
Yeah.
has a talk about splunking the endpoint, which I am really looking forward to. I may not make it on time, but I will try to get there.
Drew, if you're watching, give us a
Yes.
seat. I just take
Yes,
care of
leave
it.
us a seat, please.
Yeah.
What else, who else is talking? We have a whole group of
So,
folks.
yeah, Ryan is speaking this afternoon about some research from Splunk Surge, and this was
Yeah.
about ransomware encryption speeds. It's really interesting stuff because there wasn't a lot of research out there, we found. In fact, the only data about encryption speeds was from one of the ransomware groups themselves. It was Lockbit. We saw on their dark web leak site that they had a whole list of 34 different ransomware groups. And it basically was just to brag that theirs was the fastest. So we took the samples, we tested it for ourselves, and we did 2 different research projects. So he's going to talk about that, and I'm looking forward to that as well. And Haley also has a talk, 3 o'clock today.
Is it about RBA?
It is about RBA.
It is about
so
RBA.
if you're interested to learn more about that, which you should, highly recommend.
Fantastic
Yeah.
talk.
Oh yeah.
I remember seeing Haley speak about RBA at the MITRE TAC conference, and it really, really broke it down, building on Jim Apker's years of work. And it's really fantastic to see more security programs adopting
It
just
is.
that strategy.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the foundational things we actually do internally here at Splunk as well is driving forward with RBA. And one of the things I was talking about at SIM was how we're expanding RBA to cover additional use cases as well, especially around insider risk. And one of the big things there that we're really happy that we can do is things you'd never want to send to your SOC as a direct notable.
Right.
You can still alert on and generate risk on with RBA. Like I can think right now, half of our SOC team would have pitchforks if we had them investigate every time someone accessed a file for the first time or something like that. But at the same time, when you're able to build that big picture, it helps you focus on what truly matters. And Haley is one of the biggest experts in that field, and so I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, I think it builds on what we've done in security for so long is there are so many alerts that come in all the time. If I'm an analyst and I see the same alerts, I'm usually going to mark them false positive,
Yeah.
mark them benign, and that's not going to paint that complete picture. So with RBA, hey, the threshold has been reached.
Yeah.
And seeing Jane and Lana on stage this morning, fantastic demo of some of the things you can do with RBA.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. What else on the docket today?
So Kelsey Bourne, who is a member of Surge, and James Young, they have a talk this afternoon about AI and machine learning. And I'm excited for that as well because Kelsey is a data scientist and her background is in machine learning. And every time she talks about it, it's right over my head. But I'm going to learn. One of these days, I'm going to learn what she's talking about.
I understand all the words because
Yes.
they are in English, albeit with an Australian accent.
Yeah.
But much beyond that, Kelsey, I
Yeah.
love you to death, but nope, I'm just same boat as you. Same boat
Yes,
as
so I
you.
will be there as well. That's a talk I'm looking forward to. So a lot happening today. Is there a talk that you're excited for?
I'm actually really excited. I've been meeting with customers and walking them through all of the wonderful things that we do to help protect Splunk and Splunk Cloud and everything else. And so I've really enjoyed, hearing from customers and talking with them about a lot of the problems they face and sharing, some of the ways that, we've solved that internally at Splunk because it shouldn't really be a surprise. We aim to be the best Splunk-based security team on the planet. And so, we're using all of the same products and, we're championing the same things, but at the same time too, we still have a lot of the issues that a normal organization that's not Splunk has too. And so it's interesting to see different ways that problems are being solved and where we can work together and also make sure that, we're all doing what we can to protect all of our different enterprises. So,
Exactly. And there were a lot of interesting customer stories that we heard at the sessions
Mm-hmm.
today and yesterday. REI we heard from today, Papa John's, Heineken. These are all large corporations that use Splunk. So it's
I think for me, one of the highlights so far has been just walking around, talking to people, and about what they do with Splunk,
Yeah.
wherever that organization is. If you've seen one Splunk instance, you've seen one Splunk instance. It's security programs, I think, are the same at a base level, but once you get much beyond that, it's just whatever is specific to your organization.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
think what we do here at Splunk is fantastic. It's a real eat your own dog food.
Oh yeah.
And
oh yeah.
being able to take what other folks do and leverage that and also help other organizations. I think it's really good. And I'm excited about RBA. I think for me, I'm actually talking to Dr. Sally Eves right after this. And John, I'm going to say Fruschauer, and butcher his last name. I apologize for that. The chief architect, WCISO for New York Presbyterian, and I'm super looking forward to doing that. And then just kind of walking around tonight. I know tonight there's something going on tonight, right? I forgot
Yeah,
what.
just a
There's
little,
search party.
Yeah.
intimate get together at the pool. It's
Right,
gonna
us,
be a good time.
around what 8,000-9,000 of our closest
Yeah,
friends. It'll
it'll
be a good
a
time. It'll be a
party.
good
Yeah, I
time.
heard we have a special guest as well at the party today. Snoop Dogg, have you heard of him?
I've heard. Yeah, I'm that old. I am Snoop Dogg years old. Yes.
I'm so excited for that. It's going to be a good time. And this is my first .com. So,
Same here.
Well, first in-person .com. Last year was virtual. So I'm really excited to see everyone outside. Hopefully it won't be too hot outside.
Yeah, I think it being a little bit later at night will help.
That'll
so we're not
help,
in the Las Vegas blow dryer of heat.
Exactly. Yeah.
All that dry air. It's got to stay hydrated. If you're out
Right.
there,
Yeah.
stay hydrated.
Yeah.
So we're at .conf, and I feel like we were at RSA last week, and we
Yes.
covered a lot of things there. But the internet doesn't stop, right?
Yep.
I haven't heard a lot of noise. Like the Friday of RSA, when we were all flying out, the first Atlassian Confluence blog we dropped that
Yes.
the search team put out super quickly. That was kind of the thing for the week. But what's happened? And then Folina. But
Yes.
I haven't heard much. Is there any updates to either of those?
Yes, so yesterday actually Microsoft released an update, a patch for Folina. It was a 0-day vulnerability that came out about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So an official patch is out for this. And you'll recall it was a security research team, NowSec, I believe. They found a Word doc on VirusTotal and published, or I guess released that publicly. Basically how it works is that there's a payload that's retrieved from an HTML link that's embedded in a Word doc. So you could use this with a phishing email. They open it, or sometimes even previewing it
right.
in some situations, right? And then that uses the MSDT, which is the Microsoft diagnostic tool. It uses that protocol schema to execute arbitrary code. You could, run PowerShell, do lots of bad things if you're able to access that. So
So you had a patch come out for it. I know that we saw there was active exploitation.
Yeah.
But that's generally the way it works with a 0-day. 0-day, it's discovered. It's probably been used before. But once the proof of concept out, it's
Yep,
better
and we
patch
did
for
see
it.
several proof of concepts released that Friday. Actually, no. Folina came out 2 weeks ago. I'm getting
Right.
my 0 days mixed up. It's just been nonstop.
well, there has been
a bit
It's
busy.
been a few. It's been a
Yeah,
few.
speaking
Yeah.
of which, so there was the Confluence 0-day,
Right,
which came out
right.
Friday, and that's the one I was thinking of with proof of exploit. So that there was a blog, it was Velexity. It came out on a Thursday night. By Friday morning, Atlassian had a patch, which was a quick
Yeah.
turnaround. So there is a patch out, but we're still hearing about organizations that are getting hit with ransomware. There's some nation state activity. Microsoft just published, I think, a blog about ransomware groups. It was Cerber 2021 ransomware, if I'm saying that right. It's a lesser known ransomware group, but they've been known to exploit this Confluence 0-day. And then also Avos Locker is
Right.
also.
But I think that's any exploit that you have, once it's out there, there is a patch. So we still see, Log4Shell, we still see that in a while. We still a lot of older exploits that are just systems getting spun back up or systems that don't get patched. They're still going to be vulnerable. And if they're vulnerable, the proof of concept's out. So you only recommend patch.
Yeah.
Yep,
right.
and-
patch. But then also, because there was that gap between when this was disclosed and when the patch was released, you still have to look at your environment and make
Yes.
sure that you're not affected. And Splunk Surge, we actually put out a blog post that Friday with some Splunk threat hunting searches in your environment. And then the threat research team, I believe, put out detections just a couple days later. So those are out as well. But yeah, definitely patch if you have not already.
Yeah, and in addition, I mean, patch, but then also too, make sure you're looking for this stuff going forward, because just because you're patched today doesn't necessarily mean that tomorrow your environment will look the same.
Well, that's something we talk about a lot when you talk
Yeah.
about asset inventory and IDR inventory.
Yeah.
We acquire, not Splunk specific, but companies acquire so much inventory and IT assets and mergers and acquisitions and just shadow IT that keeps building up over time. And that becomes a problem.
Yeah.
I know specifically, like there are certain systems that get spun up every couple years.
Yeah.
And then your VM comes back up and you've got an outdated version that is super vulnerable because you've never had reason to patch it.
Yeah, or even too, we've even seen some instances where you have to restore a system from backup. Something goes wrong, and the last backup you had
It's
a
a vulnerable
configuration or something like that. And so, that's why it's just critical to patch and then make sure continually you're assessing your inventory so that you can make sure that you are patched going forward.
Exactly. And speaking of ransomware with the Confluence Zero Day, I saw an interesting tweet yesterday that I wanted to talk about real quick. And this was from Brett Callow. He's a security researcher at MCSoft, which is a New Zealand-based cybersecurity firm. And he tweeted the other day, he's really great at monitoring these ransomware groups, by the way. So if you're interested, I recommend following him. He tweeted about this ransomware group called ALF-V, if I'm saying that right. I never know with these ransomware groups, but it's this interesting new extortion tactic where they've created this, it's kind of like a Have I Been Pwned website, and it's on the ClearNet. It's not a dark website. And so basically they're emailing victims of ransomware. So their company, maybe they're an employee or a customer, they get an email from this ransomware group saying, hey, your personal information is compromised. Check this link to see what we have on you. And then they can go to this site. And I just, I hadn't heard of that before. And I thought it was an interesting new extortion tactic.
It's a pressure technique.
Right.
I think it boils into that. And I think that specific flavor of it is a new one.
Yeah.
But ransomware operators have been known to give victims, hey, look, Tony's company has been, compromised, and he's not going to do anything, and try and shame him into it publicly. It is a new tack. It's interesting, and I don't think it will catch on, and I hope it doesn't catch on.
Yeah,
but,
I don't want to.
Yeah.
Don't get any ideas, but
I think it's a new affiliate, I guess, an add-on feature, I guess, if you're going for
upping
more
the
enterprise.
pressure, right? I mean,
exactly.
that's really what
that's
it boils down to.
The point is to up the pressure so that you force the victim to pay.
Yeah.
And, if you can only, decimate operations by deploying ransomware, but now, hey, by the way, on addition, all of your customers are asking you about this. Like, that would throw any organization into chaos, because not only do you have to battle ransomware, but now there's additional PR issues and things that you have to contend
if you're
with as well.
hearing about your personal info from the ransomware group before your company tells you, I mean, that could be upsetting. So,
100% it would. And I think it goes back to what we were saying, ransomware itself is not very interesting.
No.
The binaries themselves are not super complex for the most part, but the impact is immediate.
Yes. Yeah.
And the impact now seems like it's spreading in a different direction, where now it's just, hey, the organization's impacted, and it's kind of not many folks would know. You might be at work and stuff stops working, but you're not really going to know if your organization's been hit by a ransomware attack for the most part.
Yeah.
Because things will be shut down. And now we're seeing a lot of that extortion in addition to this. So it's new techniques, new tactics are being adopted. I think it's going to be new ways to combat it, but I don't know how you would.
Well, I thought what was so interesting is, remember the Conti chat leaks earlier this year?
Yeah.
We got a lot of insight from that about how they communicate internally. What are their strategies? And one of the things, because I was searching through the data, we actually had a Splunk instance Shannon Davis created where you can search through for keywords and find interesting conversations. And a lot of it has to do with how they're targeting customers. There was one conversation about seeking out companies that comply with GDPR because they're more likely to pay, is what the conversation said, which I thought was interesting. So that was a huge insight into the mind of a ransomware operator.
I think a lot of the chats were in that same vein where, hey, if you target some organization at too high a level, you will have rebuke from a federal
Colonial
government.
Pipeline.
Right. So we can target organizations, but let's keep it under a threshold and stay under that radar. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. But to your point, those chats are just amazing to look at. I mean, I just searched myself, to be honest with you. I Googled myself. I didn't see my name, so I felt really good about that.
That's good.
Really
It's
good
always
about
a relief.
that.
Yeah.
I did see Tony's. I did see a chili recipe, too.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. That is the great way to just destroy any computer, is put chili in it.
Yeah. Your suitcase. So we're about, 20 or so minutes. The rest of the day, I've got a bunch of talks I want to go check out. There's a party going on tonight. I'm super jazzed to be here at Conf. I think for me, the highlight this morning was seeing the super session for security, listening to the RBA getting a lot of credit, and obviously the most benevolent boss in the world, Ryan Kovar, on the main stage, just extolling the virtues. So with that, I think we're going to cut it relatively short today.
And we'll be back tomorrow.
Also tomorrow. And
don't worry, we'll be back.
Expect us to be, after a Snoop Dogg party, we're going to be tired.
It'll be an interesting experience.
The dry desert air.
But 10:30 Pacific time tomorrow, we'll be back. And until then, enjoy Conf.
Yeah. Have a great one, everyone.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, and you have to.
Hi, everybody. We are back here live on the conference floor in the Source Pavilion at Splunks.conf22. I'm Corey Minton, Director of the Observability Strategist, and a total petrol head for our UK friends, gearhead for those of you who ascribe to the units of the US. And I'm super excited to have one of my favorite folks at Splunk join me here today. If you've paid attention to some of Splunk's social channels, seen some of the announcements that we've made over the last few months, one of the most exciting announcements we made was we actually had a TED Talk, not a little TEDx talk, but an actual TED Talk at the main TED conference this year in Vancouver. And I'm joined by James Hodge, the GVP and Chief Strategy Advisor for EMEA, who was on the TED stage this year. James, I have to ask you, do you have the coolest job at Splunk?
Yes, I think so. I think everyone has like super cool jobs, and at Splunk, like there's so many amazing things you get to do. But being on the TED stage was like one of the highlights, right, of my 9 years so far.
Yeah.
Not this as well, like definitely this as well.
No, it's fine. I'm not a TED conference.
Just like you said, one of your favorite Splunkers. I'm still like, am I number one, number two, number three?
We don't have to go there, James.
This and TED, we won't go into it, but yeah.
Cool. So after having been on the TED conference, that has to be like bucket list item as somebody who spends time, sharing their opinions on technology, being a technology advocate and evangelist, being on a stage like that, that's a global thought leadership sort of organization. Do you go by Ted Hodge now, or is it James TED alum Hodge?
I think actually my kids did it better. My daughter did a dance performance. First one, she was 6 at the time, 300 people in the audience, and afterwards she went, "Daddy, you're absolutely fine with your Teddy talk. I did it in front of 300 people. You've got this. Like if I can do 300, I know yours is not big. It's just a Teddy talk. You'll be fine."
A Teddy talk. I love that. My son Teddy will love that as well. So you're the Teddy talk guy. So let's back up. How in the world does a chief strategy advisor for a technology company end up sharing, our story and a message around esports and gaming and motorsports? How do you end up having that conversation? Like, what was that process like on how it evolved?
So I think the most awesome thing about TED, and I think one of the reasons people like the content, is it's really authentic. It's really heavily picked by TED, curated by TED to go and fit within a theme. Mm-hmm. So you can't pay to go and do a TED talk. It's one of the kind of the nice, unique things about the conference. So the content curator, Simone, saw some of the Art of Data series that we did on Splunk.com and on LinkedIn. She went, "Hey, this is awesome. You've got F1, that's cool. You got esports, that's really cool. You got data, that's really relevant." And I ended up having a talk with Simone about what does it actually mean. Apart from it's cool, for me and what Simone and I started talking about was it's really talking about a new era of play, the way people engage. It's a new meaning behind sports, but it's more than that. For me, it was also about, think about you and I, we're technologists. Yeah. We have our boundaries of what we can imagine is based on what we've learned before in the past, right? What children and youth of today are able to go and experience through esports is fundamentally changing the way they perceive horizons and reality. And so Simone and I had a really good talk about this, and she said, "Hey, I think this might be an interesting talk." And so we spent, a good few months back and forwards with ideas, and finally I got the phone call saying, "Hey, James, we'd like you to do a TED talk."
I mean, I think, outside of like, outside of life events, that's got to be like professionally, like the letter of maybe getting into medical school or law school. That's one of those things. It's like, do you have it framed? Do you have that, like you're getting into TED Talk framed somewhere?
I have an email that I've kept a copy of. I actually still have my original. I actually realized I have it in my bag that I've not taken out since Vancouver. I still have my final manuscript with all of my scrawlings and things behind. That's the thing I think I'm going to frame about it.
Yeah. Well, for the folks that actually did attend TED, you probably, you had a chance to see James give an amazing talk, and we'll dig into that in a second. But we also showed up with a very similar experience to help people understand and actually give them a, a real life visceral experience of what is play, what is this new era of play, and how advanced these racing simulators have become. And it was amazing. We actually got to be there with you, James, as we made jokes about being like your carnies because we were running the racing simulators, much like we're doing here this week at .conf. But it was incredible to see the kind of the diversity of people that attend that attend TED, and the diverse backgrounds, not only from a location perspective, but thoughts and ideas. And one of the things that I took away from TED that was kind of interesting was the way it made you feel. Like there was this like feeling of being there. And I'm curious, like as you had a chance to go through more of the experience of TED, what were some of the feelings that you left with after participating in such an incredible conference?
I mean, I think the feelings I had on the flight there versus the way back were very different.
I'm
You
sure.
know, on the flight there, and I think I spotted one of my other co-speakers. You could just spot someone basically glued in front of a script,
Yeah.
kind of like walking up and down an aisle trying to remember it. But I think the thing for me was seeing so many amazing people at the conference spreading ideas. It's a really daunting thing to go and stand on that red circle. And you don't see it when you watch it back on TED.com, but it's edited.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get up there, it's an intimidating audience. When you think about who is there, these are people that are at the top of their field. If you mess up your lines, and people do, you get a big cheer. You get a full kind of, you got this, walk off the side of the stage, have a glass of water, come back on. Everyone wants to hear your point of view and your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
They're not there to like, are you giving the most amazing speech? It's they want to be tested. They want to learn something new. They want to be challenged. And I think that's the thing. And it's very rare you get to a conference with the breadth of topics, but every single talk, you take something away from it. And I think that's the magical thing about the TED conference.
Yeah. So one of the things that's very clear in your profile socially is you talk about being a data-driven technologist, and clearly Splunk, a data-driven organization trying to turn data into doing it in action. Why do you think the data is getting such a clear stage on a global stage now in places like TED? And I know you've done a bunch of other things recently in EMEA and others that really starts to set the table for how does data transform humanity. Why do you think that is? Like, what's your opinion on why we're seeing such an interest in what you and the team and frankly what Splunk are doing at this stage?
I think the most important thing about data, it gives us a chance to understand what's actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
You and I can have an opinion on something, but data gives us a grounding into what actually happened. And I can use that to learn. All good ideas really happen from looking back into history. And that's why history is such a fundamentally important topic to learn, because it allows you to understand what's happened and learn from the mistakes of the past, and go and look at what do I want to do in the future. And that's what data really means. We don't think about it as history, but as soon as data is created, you have a record of an interaction. It is history. Any piece of data, maybe a millisecond, but it's some kind of historical data, and I can use that to go and apply it to some new world knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the moments of our time. Almost everything is digitized now, no matter what you do. And so this is our new history in a way.
Yeah. So for those that haven't had a chance to watch the TED Talk, I know we kind of talked about it. It's a new era of play. It's opened up new possibilities. But if you don't mind, just kind of recapping just the high level, kind of what was the narrative? What was the story that you were trying to convey as you think about how esports and gaming have really expanded, as you said, the horizons? What was the narrative behind it? We don't give it all away because we do, hope that people will go watch it. But like the big picture, what did they leave with?
You made me almost think about, because I actually give that talk still.
Yeah.
How well ingrained in my memory are those kind of 1,400 words.
Yeah.
The story is really around the shift into the way that we consume entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
We're no longer just consuming. We're participants in a shared experience now with entertainment, and esports is an amazing example of that.
Yeah.
And we frame it around the access to opportunity. There was Rudy Van Buren. He was age of 8. He bought his first go-kart. He then got to the Dutch National Championship in 2013 at the age of 16. Before he was 16. At the age of 16, it just became too expensive to continue in professional racing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a phenomenally expensive sport to get to the pinnacle of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he picks a different career path. And then the world's fastest gamer competition came online.
Yep.
And Rudy beat 30,000 other people to become the world's fastest gamer at the age of 25.
Yep.
And that opened up a whole bunch of new possibilities for him that we explore in TED Talk. So really, esports is changing our way that we look at sport. Over COVID, there was no sport. Esports, it was sport. It was the only sport available. And that has completely changed the way we engage with it.
Yeah.
It's democratizing access to different sports. It's maybe shifting us away from traditional sports, and it's changing perceptions.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a huge industry and a huge bit of life that's changing.
Yeah, and I think it's a fantastic analog for, I think, what's happening in so many enterprises around the world, where you have these traditional sort of businesses or traditional things that we know. Sport, F1, right? McLaren's been around since 1964. That seems like a pretty traditional business, and esports is that disruptive, digital-first sort of experience that's changing the way that an organization like McLaren operates. And I think they've been clearly an innovator. We talked with Leaston and Ben Daly yesterday about how they invested. They were the first F1 team to really invest in having a esports team as well. And it's wild. They shared this metric, which blew my mind. Esports and gaming is now bigger than not only the music industry, but the film industry combined. Like, that is an incredible, disruptive, digital-first experience that is, like, it's available to all. And that's the story of accessibility, is open it to everybody.
I completely agree. And take gaming, which takes more than just esports. The gaming industry, and this was about 18 months ago, was going to double by 2025.
Yeah.
Just think of an industry that is already bigger than the music and the film industry combined, that is going to double. Yeah. And I'm gonna, almost a challenge is it goes back to, what is sport? Sport is something that, as participants, we like to watch and we get engaged with it. You got heroes, you got villains, storylines, those type of things. You get exactly the same with esports. In fact, the only difference is the physical characteristics you get with it. And some may argue, because you're not, getting your heart rate up and getting kind of sweaty and that kind of athletic side of it, it's not sport. But maybe it is. Yeah. Maybe we're actually just testing different abilities and different access into it. As a fan, if you watch any of the esports, the Virtual Grand Prix series, any of the NASCAR, it's engaging. But as soon as you start to know those storylines, you're willing those characters to go and win, and that's what's so exciting. It's a new world.
Yeah, and I think as we see advancements in technology driving gaming forward, things like virtual reality, haptic feedback systems, simulators that allow movement and allow action. I can tell you this for 100%, like, I've been as sweaty after an endurance race in VR and hot and sweaty and worn out as any race I've ever done in my own actual race car. So it's like a
nice red ring around you.
It's not an attractive look, I'll be honest. But it's wild though. I'm not kidding. Like, if you think, oh, it's not that big a deal, if you suffer at all from motion sickness or vertigo, like, do not get in VR. It's wild how immersive it is. But to be able to be in that, like in a racing context, to be able to look around and actually have a periphery of, the cars around you so you can make decisions, and it's wild. And what's interesting to me too, that I think I'd be curious your kind of thought is, it's not just about the gamers, like the person with their hands on the wheel, and it's not just about the folks that are watching, the audience, but there's an entire industry of folks that are starting to pop up in roles, that are new, that are not new. Like we were talking the other day about, there's actually people who their job is as a crew chief for an F1, like a esports team. Like, did we ever think that was a possibility? You could actually have a job not only playing games, but helping others?
Literally professional coaches on esports. Yeah. And it's amazing. And one of the reasons why that's enabled is the data that comes off the games. And this is the bit that, I admit I work in data. I work in technology. I like gaming. I like Formula One games and things like that. But it was only when, for me, and when lockdown started, when you and I started playing against each other, we played against McLaren. McLaren cheated because they brought in their professional drivers.
That's true.
I'm gonna stick to that. That you started to realize, actually, I want to get better at this. And then you dig into it more. You realize how much telemetry comes off the game. It's almost more than real F1, because they're not limited by the weight of sensors or physics. So they can stream all this telemetry. And so that's enabling a whole new ecosystem and industry around it. I think there's another thing that's changing, which is one of the things that you see a lot at the moment in kind of business articles and LinkedIn and everything is what's the future of the workplace?
Yeah.
At the moment, we're talking about hybrid, remote, full in. I think that's fundamentally the wrong question to be asking. It
Yep.
is what are the generations that are entering the workforce expecting from technology, how they
Yeah.
interact with each other, how they go and make connections. And a lot of this is being informed by gaming and esports.
Hmm.
We both have young children. We
Yep.
could hand them a Nintendo Switch, connect them online, and they can go and completely accept. They can go and have the shared experience together.
Hmm.
You and I, before we kind of got into this, might have looked at it and gone, no,
No.
yeah, kind of. But
Yeah.
so now think about this year in executive hiring, or you're a first time manager and you're hiring kind of earlier in career people.
Hmm.
They've got very different needs and skill sets and vision and outlook to life than someone later in career. So this is another area that, for me, is massively being disrupted.
Yeah, well, that's actually the point that Leaston was making yesterday from Shadow Esports was esports and gaming is now the single most important cultural touch point for youth today. And so we have to believe that, the future technologists that are going to enter the workforce, as you said, are going to be most informed by their gaming and esports interactions more so than film or music. And so, yes, I think it's absolutely transformative. And the other thing I think is sort of probably a good indication of how the world and workforce is evolving is that the largest sort of area of employment for adults that are participating in and watching esports is actually in technology. It's cybersecurity and IT operations. It's like literally the Splunk community is the world's biggest gaming fans. It's wild to me. I'm
And
curious
that's
from your
awesome.
perspective. It is awesome. So I say that
Yeah.
because as you think about Splunk's role in that future, in that next reality, how do you see Splunk meeting the challenge of a changing and an evolving workforce and a changing and evolving digital economy that gaming is absolutely at the forefront of? How does Splunk stay relevant and frankly shape that future?
I think it comes back to how does anything evolve?
Hmm.
So you want to go and carry out a transformation. You're a game company. You want to launch a new service.
Hmm.
Well, straight away, you and I hear the words, "I'm going to launch something." We're,
Hmm.
we're already shuddering thinking about launch night, digital operations.
Yep.
Then you got all the coding behind it, all the API development. How do I go and connect it?
Hmm.
You see a lot in the gaming industry, fraud, where people can go and buy tokens and trade tokens behind that and the gamification of it. So you've got definitely a huge cyber angle to it.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, what these companies are trying to do is deliver an amazing experience
Hmm.
to the consumers that want to engage with the gaming. The complexity behind that, as gaming gets more advanced, we shift more to cloud, is growing, but it also allows the opportunity behind it. So I think for Splunk, being able to give the assurance on fraud, cyber, IT operations, understanding the consumer experience, and being able to provide a resilient gaming experience to users. So all they have to think about is lifting up their kind of gamepad and engaging with the game
Yeah.
is important. As soon as they have to think about, am I secure, anything like that, or is this going to work today? We've missed opportunities in industry to make someone actually get joy out of an experience.
Yeah. So it's clear that esports gaming clearly changing the way we work, changing the way we play. James, it's great to hear your perspective on how esports and specifically sim racing is part of that new era of play. And I highly encourage folks, if you haven't checked out James's TED Talk, be sure to go out and check it out. I think the story, the narrative it's engaging, it's meaningful, and I frankly think it's informative on for especially for folks who maybe are on the outside looking in to esports and gaming. If that's not the generation that you kind of raised in, it's kind of a new thing. It's definitely a good understanding to see how it's transforming not only just sort of cultural norms, but I think they're finding their way into enterprise norms that we're going to have to deal with in this new way we work. So James, I want to say thank you again for the time, buddy. I hope you get to feeling better. Sorry you couldn't be here in person and experience the crazy cool stuff that's happening here on the pavilion floor. But as we say with any of these motorsports related and Splunk activities we do, whatever you're into, be data driven, join Data Drivers. We'll see you on the next show.
Hey everybody, it's Alex Josh. I'm a product manager here at Splunk, and we're coming to you from the show floor. As you can see, it's very busy, having a lot of fun. And with me here is Mangesh.
Hey Alex, thanks. I'm Mangesh Pimpalkhare. I'm the Vice President of platform product management here at Splunk. And, Alex and I handle all kinds of platform fun things together.
All kinds of excitement all the time.
Yeah.
So how's Conf going for you? Having fun?
Oh, it's been a blast. Like I got here on Sunday, and first of all, I mean, this is the busiest thing I've really attended since COVID, right? Like
Yeah,
so
right.
this is complete people energy, like on steroids out here at Conf. Like, did you get in on Sunday as well?
Yeah, I came in on Sunday. Yeah, it's my first Conf. I'm a COVID hire as well since COVID, so it's great to see the guys. I mean, actually, I heard about the whole Fez thing, but I didn't realize how much of a thing it really is. And so now every time I see somebody with a Fez, I'm like, hey, how's it going? And say hi and ask them questions, and it's really cool to meet these people.
It's fascinating. I mean, Conf has a lot of energy, and this is, like you said, it's my first in-person Conf as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And do you remember last year? I thought that was like a very valiant attempt by Splunk. Like all
the marketing
green
people should get
screens.
double pay, whatever. That was pretty crazy there.
Exactly. I mean, you had all these presentations with people look like they were walking on Mars or the moon, but this is a lot more fun.
Yeah, this is way more fun for sure. Yeah, I watched it last year, but it's great to actually participate.
Yeah. Any favorite picks thus far from what you've seen at Conf?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the best things are the customer sessions. I've seen some really, really stellar customer sessions. If you didn't, by the way, for folks watching, watch the replays and the videos, because I mean, I think that's what's so cool about Conf, right? I mean, I've seen a couple of customer sessions, and I'm, visibly taking notes, and it's like, wow, that's amazing what they're doing. So I mean, I'm learning from them, So that, for me, that's the best part. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure. Like we get tired of pitching how great
Right.
Splunk is, right? It's actually good to hear what customers are really doing with Splunk, and I think it's a tremendous learning experience. They love to learn from each other, and then of course we want to learn from customers and shape our platform and products how we can help them.
Yeah, totally. So speaking of that, what are the kind of the top themes for you this week? What are you talking to people about? What are you saying? What are you hearing back?
Yeah, I think a couple of themes that we've been really talking about at Conf. You saw that in Gary's keynote right at the offset. And then, of course, as we've gone into deeper dive sessions, is really the idea of one security and observability platform for customers.
Yeah.
And because people often wonder, who is Splunk? Right? Like, we've been around for 15 years, and we've really started as a log management solution. But over the years, we have really transformed with very, very large customers and solved a bunch of use cases on the security side, a lot of new use cases on the observability side. But the thing that makes us different is really combining all these in one unified platform.
Yeah.
There's a lot of point solutions out there, and I don't think even CIOs can keep up with like how many vendors are pitching them different solutions. So the big theme, if anything, at this has been, how do we really get the mindshare of customers with one thing?
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I mean it's very interesting because you hear Gary talk about like hybrid all the time, and and that feels like the right thing. But then when you talk to customers, they come back and they're like, oh yeah, we've got self-managed on-prem, we have Azure, we have GC. I mean, so many customers, whether through acquisition or intentional strategy or accidental strategy. It just seems to be the new reality, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like he's really nailed that strategy.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing that I love the way we have started articulating this is, security and observability, these are all buzzwords, but it's not different problems, really.
Yeah,
it's all about getting visibility on your data. Enterprises need what's going on in your infrastructure, and whether an incident is an incident. Like when things go wrong, like I don't think anybody is really classifying, is this a security incident or is my IT infrastructure melting down? And Gary said it well, an incident is an incident.
Yeah, I was talking to a customer that was part of a really serious hacking attempt, and it's like it's all hands on deck, right? doesn't matter what your job title is, right? So
Exactly.
it was like, oh, right, of course.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Tell me a little bit about hybrid. That's actually an interesting point. I don't think enough people sometimes use hybrid in quite the same way. So how are you hearing customers use hybrid?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that word can mean a lot of things to different people, but I mean, for me, what I think about when I think about hybrid is I think about this notion of a cloud control plane and taking advantage of what's going on in the cloud, but customers need to have their data, within their premise, right? There's a sovereignty issue, there's a data gravity issue. So there's a lot of reasons why customers are like, no, I don't want to ship all my logs up to the cloud. I want to keep them on-prem.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to be in the business of operating all this stuff either. So can I have the ease of use and, and malleability of the cloud, but still own my own data?
Yeah.
And for us, that's like, well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? So how do we do that? And so we had some announcements this week, especially around edge processor, where we want to facilitate that, where it's not either or, right? I think 5 years ago, we all thought it was going to be like all cloud or nothing. And I think now we've learned that that's not actually true. It's going to be all of those things.
You mean nobody just lives in the clouds?
Well, I'm sure somebody does. But
Somebody has to live on Earth.
Yeah,
Clouds mix it up.
yeah, definitely the vast majority of customers that I talk to here at the show, have some infrastructure they run themselves. They have some infrastructure that they rent out to other people. They're using Salesforce, right, for that, or they're using a payroll system. But I want to run I want to keep my patented, drug formula thing in my own data center because that's my business. It's like,
Exactly.
oh, that makes a lot of sense. So that kind of thing. It's just the real world playing out. You just get beyond the hype, and it's like, well, I don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just what are you really doing? Oh,
Yeah.
we're doing this. Oh, great. Okay, fantastic, right?
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. That's what's resonating about hybrid. And in a similar vein, what's really resonating with customers these last 2 days is the idea that all data does not have to come into Splunk.
Yeah.
I mean, Splunk is a great analytics platform, but you don't have to literally send all the data to Splunk anymore. And one of the capabilities we announced yesterday, for example, we call that federated search. And what that really means is you can add search capabilities looking across data that resides in different data islands, and it doesn't all have to get consolidated.
Yeah, I love that discussion yesterday because, I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, you're gonna wind up dumping something in an object store, right? I mean, if you're on AWS, it's S3 or, pick your poison. And there's just a lot of reasons why you want to do that, right? And maybe that data is not searched every day, so it doesn't have to be in a super high performance store. But if you have an incident or you're doing an audit, or you can see why it's like, yeah, why not I just have these same search tools, on this data that's sitting over here in a lower cost tier? It's like, and then you start thinking about that. It's like, oh yeah, you can really see.
Yeah.
And I'm sure customers are going to come back next year and say, oh, we're using it for this and this, and they're going to have like all kinds of really cool use cases that we didn't even think about. But I mean, my head is already going about like, oh, we could, use this as a dump for audit or whatever, all kinds of cool things.
Yeah, exactly. Alex, this is a little bit, I know you have teenage kids like I do.
Yeah.
Imagine keeping all the food they needed in your fridge. That's not going to work,
Yeah,
right?
all the time. Yeah.
You keep some in your fridge, you keep some in the supermarket, like you go shop when you need to.
Yeah.
So our customers need the same flexibility, how they set up systems and how they actually utilize us.
So what's the cloud version of pizza delivery? Because that's all my teenagers care about.
Talking of that, I had a very interesting chat. I don't know if people caught it, but with Papa John's.
Yeah, that was a cool
Yes,
discussion. Those guys are
that was such a fascinating story because talking of the cloud, they were at 100 stores just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And now they're in 50 countries, 3,200 stores, and 90% of their transactions, like orders, now are online. So, people used to walk up to the store or get your pizza, eat it there.
Yeah.
It's all the call, and the pandemic's obviously accelerated all that. And this is a great example of customer journeys who have transformed. They started on-prem, they started moving to the cloud. Their end customers started really changing how they use the system. In turn, if we have to keep up with them, we have to really modify our approach and to keep adding value.
Yeah, the pace of change in that business must have exploded, right? If you think about it, calling somebody on the phone and ordering pizza, that didn't change for 30 years.
Right.
Right now
Exactly.
I'm sure they've got online campaigns, they've got, e-coupons, whatever, right? They must have like all this stuff.
Yes.
It's-
So
it's
you know,
crazy.
it's a fascinating set of challenges. Willie James, there, who runs the resiliency team, he's saying even before stores open on a day, they'll literally look at all the data from 3,200 stores, what went wrong, any kind of hiccups in the supply chain, any kind of hiccups in just day-to-day operations,
Yeah.
really get their act together, because he was saying, I don't want any hungry customers. Well, as I said, hungry customers are good because they're going to eat pizza.
It's hangry. You don't want
It's
them
don't want
hangry.
hangry. That's right. No waiting hungry customers.
Yeah, one of my customers said to me yesterday, is like, only Splunk would have pizza and beer
Yeah,
in the keynote. I'm like, I
That's
didn't even
right.
think about that, but it's like,
that's right. We
somebody in
had,
marketing is paying attention.
yeah. So we had Alex is talking about Heineken. That was the other cool keynote we had. Heineken, another amazing story.
Yeah.
I mean, we think of beer like basically as the way we look at it. Imagine an operations that is like pretty much global, right? It's the entire planet, one of the big manufacturers, and they can't have these operational hiccups. And they call their universal dashboard "Show Me," and it's literally what it says: "Show me all that's going on well, all that's basically lighting up red, and I need to go do something about it."
Yeah, it was interesting to watch. So, based on your conversations, people you've talked to, what do you think are like the things that are really the buzz? What are customers talking about? What's resonating with people?
Well, one of the big things resonating is your area. You know more about this, right? Like managing data. Like that's been a big theme because, as I said before, customers don't want all the data to live in one place.
Yeah.
And if you were to get smarter insights on the data, really starts with you managing the data in the first place. And so, Alex, tell us a little more about like managing data and what's your vision there? Where are we going with that?
Yeah, it's a very exciting time for us. I mean, I would say a year and a half ago, we were really, trying to find our place. And, we have been generating partner integrations through add-ins for a long time. So it's a very well-established business. We know how to do it. But we weren't executing at the quality level we wanted to execute at. We felt like we could do better, we could have higher quality, we could be more current. And so we really revamped that business completely. And it's a lot of internal work, internal plumbing. And you think, oh, well, maybe customers haven't noticed. But then we talk to customers at the show floor here, and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you for the quality increases, thank you for, I'm like, oh, okay. So people notice, which is nice. But and then at the same time, we're also introducing a completely new data platform for ingest. So we did Data Manager for AWS and for Azure. It was super